one. Okay. So I'm going to introduce you to one of my favorite games, the I Love Rectangles game. Okay. So does everybody agree that a square is a rectangle? Yeah. But a rectangle is not necessarily a square. Okay. You are allowed to discriminate against certain categories, but not others. So the first thing I did when I was tenured at Williams is I checked to make sure being a Yankee fan is not a protected category. It is not. Geometric shapes are not protected categories. I am allowed to say I don't like triangles. I'm allowed to say I don't like donuts. Although I do. But we will play the I Love Rectangle game where the only acceptable shapes are rectangles. Anything that is not a rectangle is unacceptable. And you have n by n squares. You have a 1 by 1, a 2 by 2, a 3 by 3, and so on and so on and so on. And you want to build the largest rectangle you can. You want to put the pieces one at a time on the flat table. Okay? You cannot put a piece on top of another piece. And as you put the pieces down, you have to have a rectangle. Can I borrow one of your pieces? Okay, thank you. So you gave me a 2, 4, 6, 8, a 9 by 9. So if I put the 9 by 9 down on the table, have I made a rectangle? Okay, so I have made a rectangle composed of one square. If one of you can make a rectangle using 2 or more squares, I will give you $5,000. Okay? So everybody understand the rules. You have a 1 by 1, a 2 by 2, a 3 by 3, a 4 by 4, a 5 by 5. If you can find a way to put 2 or more tiles down and get a rectangle, you have to put the tiles down one at a time. And it has to be a rectangle at every moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you cannot use duplicates. So certain tiles are easily lost by children. Yeah. That's not a square. So you can't use that right now.
Oh,
Correct. So you can only use you can only use squares. You only have one of each size square. So can anybody put down 2?
Yeah, they can't be overlapping.
They can't be overlapping. Okay. So everybody agrees that this game sucks. This is a technical mathematical term, right? So you can't do better than than just one square. Okay. So, for example, if I put down the 4 by 4 square, there's nothing that's going to fit next to it. Okay. If I tried to put the 3 by 3, it doesn't align. All right. So in order to make this game interesting, I have to give you more pieces. I am a cheapskate. Yeah, these pieces cost money to produce, right? What's the cheapest extra piece I could give you?
Small one.
The smallest, another 1 by 1 square. So now you no longer get $5,000 if you can do this. You can now have 2 1 by 1 squares. And the question is, what's the largest rectangle you can form putting squares down one at a time? Okay, so now see how large you can make it. So you have 2 copies of the 1 by 1 square. And then everything else, you only have 1 copy. You have 1 2 by 2, 1 3 by 3, 1 4 by 4. And see what's the largest rectangle you can make. Zoom recording. All right, so it seems like a lot of people have figured out what to go on. So I give you 2 1 by 1 squares. And the only possibility is we have to start off by combining the 2 1 by 1 squares. Because if I don't use both of them, then it's just reduced to the problem we just solved, which we know is boring. So the only possible first move is to combine the 2 1 by 1s. Now what do we do?
2 by 2.
So it unfortunately sometimes changes size when it projects on the iPad from the computer. Okay, so then we do the 2 by 2, and then what comes after the 2 by 2? Nope. 3 by 3.
Oh,
right. And then 5 by 5. So we don't use the 4 by 4. And so once you pass something, you never come back to it. And so this is going to give us the Fibonacci numbers. So if we look at the size of the squares, it's 1 by 1, 1 by 2, there's a 1 by 1, 1 by 1, 2 by 2, 3 by 3, 5 by 5, 8 by 8. Just put this down. So these are the Fibonacci numbers. So if you haven't seen the Fibonacci numbers before, there's an interesting pattern. Does anybody notice the pattern? Yeah. Each one is the sum of the previous two. 1 plus 1 is 2. And then 1 plus 2 is 3. And then 2 plus 3 is 5. So the n plus first Fibonacci is the nth plus the n minus 1. So this is a way, and I've done this all the way down to kindergarten, for kids to discover in a hands-on way the Fibonacci numbers in the sequence. There's a lot of great things you can do once you have the Fibonacci numbers. You can ask lots of questions about them. And again, I actually am the president of the International Fibonacci Association. So if you do have any Fibonacci needs, please let me know. But there's lots of activities you can do with your kids. I'm trying to spend today by throwing a lot of math out at you so that if there are things you are particularly interested in, you can let me know and we can talk more about them on next week. But lots of stuff you can do with the Fibonacci's. Again, this is a really nice, straightforward exercise. One challenge is, how far can you compute? And so I've had, times when I've gone into the school where kids have gone into a computational challenge. Who can find the largest Fibonacci? What's the danger if you're trying to compute Fibonacci numbers quickly?
You skip one, you gotta say.
Yeah, if you make a small algebra mistake, once you make an algebra mistake, odds are you will never recover. So it's an interesting question. If you go too quickly, you're more likely to make a mistake and then lose. What speed do you go? Do you have some people who are checking the work? Maybe you have a team and a couple of people going really, really fast, going far down, and then other people are going behind them and check, oh, we made a mistake, gotta backtrack a little bit. So lots of wonderful properties about them. Here's a interesting relationship. So a lot of mathematics is about looking at things two different ways. So there's a beautiful spiral you can make from the Fibonacci's, where we're starting at 1, 1, 2, 2, and we're just spiraling around as we keep adding things. And as you were building your Fibonacci's, as you were building your rectangles, whenever it was time to place a new rectangle, you had two choices. Either put it to the left or the right, or maybe put it up or down. And maybe we make a decision, we're always going to go right, down, left, up, right, down, left, up, right, down, left, up. How much time do I have to fill? So you keep going like that. And if you go in that order, you will make a Fibonacci spiral. I'm going to give a problem to some of my summer students. What if I choose a random order? I know that this is eventually going to cover the entire plane. If I choose a random order, do I have some sense of how long it's going to take me to reach a certain point? So there's lots of ways to get research questions out of what we are doing. So you can look at the spiral like this. This is a giant rectangle. Can somebody tell me the dimensions of this rectangle?
34 by 21.
34 by 21. So one way to calculate the area is 34 times 21. Another way to calculate the area is to sum the area of all the smaller squares. It's also 1 squared plus 1 squared plus 2 squared plus 3 squared plus ... plus 21 squared. We've just shown that the product of the first n Fibonacci numbers is the nth times the n plus first Fibonacci number. So we've just proved, and this is written down below, f1 squared plus f2 squared plus all the way up to fn squared is fn times fn plus 1. So this is a great way of looking at something two different ways and finding a relationship. So I wanted to do one more thing and then we'll take our first break. So I want to go back a little bit to just finish off the unit on gambling. And it's always interesting as to how do you want to phrase this. I do like to excite students. And again, I have no problem with students of mine making large amounts of money thanks to the math I give them. There is, of course, the danger of what happens if they don't win. So one possibility is to talk about how could you use math in the real world, warn them about the dangers of using math in the real world. And if possible, before you actually apply it, can you do some tests? Can you write some computer code and simulate things? And so what I want to do is I want to talk about roulette. How many of you know the rules of roulette? So we're going to do a very simplified version of roulette. So we're going to assume that there are no greens and that half the numbers are red, half the numbers are black. So if the ball lands on a red and you bet red, you win. If the ball lands on a black and you bet red, you lose. The odds are 50-50. In the real world, it's not like that. In the real world, there are two greens, and if it lands on a green, you're going to lose. So your chance is not quite 50%. One of the best things I ever saw was, I think I was in one of the airports, I think in Las Vegas, and they had roulette that I think you could play in the airport. And there are many, many types of morons in the world. But a good large subset of morons can be split into two subsets. There's this other goes, oh, red has come up 5 times in a row. Red is hot. I should bet on red. And what's the other set of moron? Black is due because red has come up 5 in a row. And they don't really care which type of moron you are, so long as you are a moron with money that you're willing to spend and play the game. And so they will actually display the results of the last couple of spins of the wheel to try to excite people to come in and place money. If it's fair, should the previous results matter? No. No, maybe it's not fair. There was a lottery years ago where it was not entirely random on some of the scratch cards, and somebody actually wrote to the lottery people and said, there's an issue with how you're doing it. The game show Press Your Luck, which became Whammy, somebody noticed years ago that the lights, as it was going on the board, were going in predetermined orders. It looked random, but it wasn't. And he made over $100,000, set the record for most money won at that time in game show history. Because for him, it wasn't random. He knew the pattern. So sometimes people do make mistakes. So here is a strategy that a lot of people believe will make them a fortune. Now, there is a reason I am not in Las Vegas and I am here today. I don't care that much about money. I would much rather talk to teachers and inspire you to inspire the next, no, bullshit. So it's called DoublePlusOne. So we will assume that you have a 50% chance of winning. It works even if it's not. So we'll bet $1 on red, and if red comes up, we win $1. If not, we're down $1. So we now bet twice as much. We bet $2 on red. If it wins, we're up $1. Why? We just made $2, but we lost $1 before. So we're net up $1. If we lose, however, we're now down $3. We now bet $4. We double our previous bet. If it comes up red, we win $1. Else we're down 7. No, that should be 7, not 4, sorry. Else we're down 7. So how much should we bet next time? I'm sorry? Nope. 8. Eventually a red will come up and eventually we win $1. And then this is shampoo mathematics. Has anybody ever read the instructions on shampoo?
Rinse and repeat.
Allow the rinse, repeat. Keep doing it again and again and again. So I eventually red comes up, I net $1, I do it again, I net another $1, I do it again, I get another $1. And again, instead of netting $1, instead of betting $1, I could bet $100 or $1,000. So I can get my money faster. Why am I not in Vegas right now doing this? And we'll eliminate the, I'm a humanitarian and I love teaching so much that.
You don't have unlimited money.
So one is I don't have unlimited money. And that is a problem. And so, you let students talk and think about what's going on. So if you put down how much money you need to bet, starting with $1, after 10 losses, you need to put down 1,000. After 15 losses, you're putting down 32,000. It goes very, very rapidly. By the end of 30 or so, you're betting $1 million after having already lost. So, how many of you have taken an econ class? So in economics, you don't have to have reasonable assumptions. You can just assume whatever you want. So I will have the let's okay. So I will have the eccentric rich uncle aunt hypothesis. I will assume I have a family member who has unlimited amounts of money. Again, economics, I don't have to have reasonable assumptions. I am trying to analyze the game in the most favorable situation for me. And if I can't even win in that, I have no chance. So I will assume an eccentric uncle or aunt who is always willing to loan me money at no interest, but will not give me $1. They don't believe in giving me $1. But if I need $1 million to place a bet, they will give me $1 million. And then if I come back and say I needed $2 million, they'll give me $2 million. And if I come back again and say I now need $4 million, they'll give me the $4 million. They will keep giving me however much money I need. I still can't win under this assumption because there's another rule you need to know about how Vegas does roulette. Does anybody know? So you need to know a little bit about how Vegas works now.
House always wins.
I'm sorry?
The house always wins.
A house tries damn hard to make sure that they always win, but they need to put something in to give them that edge. And it's just not the greens. The greens make it easier for Vegas to win, but there's a additional rule of roulette that I have not told you.
They limit how many times you can win.
Nope. But you're close with the word limit.
How many times?
Not how many bets you can make,
How much?
how much you can. They don't have to take your bet.
Oh.
And so what they do is they might say there's a table limit. And so you can't bet more than a certain amount. Maybe the table limit is 130. So you place your bet, you've lost $128. You now want to bet 256. They won't let you. There's a table limit. And this is designed so that you can't run a scheme like this. Oh, trust me, I'm good for the $1 billion. Put $1 billion on red. And if I lose, I'll put $2 billion on the next spin. So even if you had the financial reserves and the stones to make such a bet, Vegas does not have to take it. And they choose the table limits very carefully. So the reason you can't use the strategy is Vegas has a table limit. So you've lost the bet for 128, you want to put down 256, but maybe the table limit is 130. So the question is, what is the probability that you hit the table limit before you make your dollar? So the problem is, when you win small. You win $1. When you lose big. There are a lot of people who are thrilled when they beat a professional gambler. And they go, I beat so-and-so. And do you know how much this bothers the professional gambler? Zero. They, in fact, it's the opposite. They're thrilled when somebody beats them because that inspires other people to think that they can beat them. And they'll just take their money quietly from all the other yokels. And yes, good, you won, congratulations. Please speak up about how you beat me. Vegas is thrilled when people do strategies like this. You could actually have a lot of people do the strategy, and most of them might walk out with a small winning. And a few people will be devastated with their losses. So this can become a great exercise to do with students. You can simulate it, you can write some code, you can do some Google Sheets, Excel spreadsheets, simulate stuff like this and try to get a sense of, if we were to do this 100 times, how many people would walk out with a positive amount and how many would be wiped out? Let's see if we can calculate it. So let's say if we get 5 black spins in a row, we're bankrupt. So there's a couple of really good ideas on what comes next. So let's let Pn be the probability we will not get 5 consecutive blacks. That means we're not going to go bankrupt. And let's Qn be the probability we will get 5 consecutive blacks. These are mutually exclusive events. So the sum of their probabilities has to be 1. Sometimes it's easier to calculate one event than the other. And if the events are complementary, if one happens if and only if the other doesn't, just do whichever one is an easier calculation. So we want to calculate either the probability we do not get 5 consecutive blacks or the probability we do get 5 consecutive blacks. So let's let Pn be the probability we do not get 5 consecutive blacks. So we look at the first spin. Half the time we get a black, half the time we get a red. If I get a red, could that start a string of 5 consecutive blacks?
No.
No. So if Pn is the probability we have no set of 5 consecutive blacks and n spins, if the first spin is a red, it's like I'm playing the game all over again. But rather than n spins, how many spins do I have? N minus 1. And so now I spin again, and again, and again, and again. So on the second spin, I have a half a chance of a black, half a chance of a red. Black, red. Can black, red start 5 consecutive? No, so at this point I have n minus 2 spins to go. And if I go black, black, red, I have n minus 3, black, 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 red, n minus 4, black, 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 n minus 5. What if I have 5 consecutive blacks? What's the probability I don't have 5 consecutive blacks, given that I start off with 5 consecutive blacks? 0. That's why Pn is the easier one to calculate, because the chain stops here. Once I have 5 consecutive blacks, well, okay, I got 5 black spins in a row. The probability I don't get 5 consecutive blacks, given that I start with 5 consecutive blacks, it's 0. So we had this recurrence relation. So that's 0. So the probability that I don't have 5 consecutive blacks and n spins is half the time I end it here. It would be Pn minus 1. A quarter of the time, half times half, I end here. 1/2 times 1/2, Pn minus 2. An eighth of the time, I would end here. A half times a half times a half. So I get this nice formula. Pn is 1/2 Pn minus 1 plus 1/4 Pn minus 2 plus 1/8 Pn minus 3, and so on and so on. This is very similar to the Fibonacci's. It has more terms. The coefficients are not all 1. But you give me earlier values, I can give you later values. This is a great example of how something like the Fibonacci's can be used to tackle other things. So what I can do now is I can actually, in Google Sheets or Excel, I can actually write down what the solution will be. So I put in the first couple of values. The first value is when n equals 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. If I have no spins, what's the probability I don't have 5 consecutive blacks if I don't spin? I don't spin at all. What's the probability I got 5 consecutive blacks?
There's no chance. It's 100% chance you don't.
100% chance I don't. That's why it's 100.
Yeah.
What if I spin just once? What's the probability I got 5 consecutive blacks if I only spin once? So the probability I don't have 5 consecutive blacks given that I spin once. It's still 100%. Even if I spin 4 times, the probability I don't have 5 consecutive blacks is still 100%. So I know the first 5 values. And now I know the value at 5 is a half the value at 4 plus an 8, plus a quarter of the value at 3 plus an eighth. I can now calculate it. I could also say, I know the answer is just going to be 1/2 to the 5th. I would need to get all 5 blacks. But I can now just march down, and each cell is the weighted sum of the previous. And so I can calculate Pn, the probability I don't, or I can calculate Qn, the probability I do.
So is this like what a casino would do?
Oh, yes.
Calculate the limits?
Absolutely. And they would calculate these very carefully and determine where to put the maximum bet possible. And again, what you could sometimes do is you could start off at a low stakes table and move to a higher stakes table. But there's still a limit to how much you can jump up when you do this. And it's calculated very carefully. What's nice is you can have a lot of people leave with a small amount of money thinking the system works. When I was young, my dad heard about this and he goes, this can't be right, this double plus one. And so we had an old Apple IIc and he wrote a simple code, might have been in BASIC, to just simulate these a million times. And he saw, whoa. And you can actually write down in closed form what these probabilities are. I am an advanced, well-trained mathematician. They don't let just anybody be the president of the Fibonacci Association. You have to be out of the room when they're discussing so that you can't go not meet. No. I can actually calculate exactly what these are. It involves solving a polynomial of degree 5. So we started today by doing quadratics. This comes out to being solving a polynomial of degree 5. And you can see, if I do this 100 times, there's an 81% chance that I will get 5 consecutive blacks, at least once. That's devastating. So when you win small. When you lose big. So to me, this is a great example of the connectedness between different types of mathematics. We started off by talking about gambling and betting. We talked about the Fibonacci numbers. Generalizations of the Fibonacci numbers come in here. We have ways to gather data and have students run some code and do some simulations, or give them some expertise in using Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel. How do you put in some code so each cell is filled in from the previous? I want my students to know how to do calculations like this. You could also play games and you can modify things. What if we put in the green squares? What if red has a higher percent coming up than black? You can modify all of those things. There's a whole slew of problems you can do. And so there's, again, if things like this interest you, there's a lot of different things we can talk about. What I want to do now is I want to take, a 5-minute break, just so people have a chance to stretch their legs, whatnot. It is, as I said, much easier to listen, to speak than to listen.